All right, so good evening. Thanks to those of you who are joining live. I appreciate it. And those of you who are going to be watching the recording, I also appreciate you taking the time. Welcome to our workshop on holding government accountable. My name is Dr. Josh Franco. You're a professor of political science here at Cuyamaca College. Let's go ahead and take a kind of overview of our workshop and what the topic is for this week, and then we'll get right to it. So recall that this is a workshop series that's focused on how individuals inside and outside of government hold it accountable to the Constitution, federal and state laws, and regulations. We're having 16 of these workshops, 30 minutes each, and obviously they're on Wednesdays from 7:30 to 8 via Zoom. This is our weekly schedule. We already had weeks 1 through 3, so student power, local government, and a semester in Sacramento or DC. And those are links to the recordings, which are embedded in the PowerPoint presentation that you can find on the iPoli-Sci workshop assignments. Today, we'll be talking about the building, which is equivalent to the California State Capitol. And obviously, you're welcome to come to future weeks where we talk about state boards and commissions, or there's a manual, or holding different branches and levels of the government accountable. I note that we won't have a workshop for spring break because it's spring break and it should be a spring break. And as you'll note that if you're in the semester line course, there's no homework due at the end of spring break because I want you guys to chill out. Okay. Let's go ahead and jump to week 3 here. So the building, or excuse me, week 4, the building. Our learning objectives with this workshop are the following. First is to define the building. Secondly is to identify at least one website where Sacramento area jobs are posted. And then third is to identify at least one job opportunity working in the state capitol. Now, a little bit of background. When we think about holding government accountable, right, we should think about it that it can be done internally or it can be externally. So for example, some people choose to hold the government accountable from the inside, and there are other people who choose to hold the government accountable from the outside. So examples of people who work on the inside include elected officials, the staffs to elected officials, appointed regulators, staffs to the regulators, lobbyists, interest group representatives, and the like. So those are people like in the inside working within existing processes and functions and spaces to try to shape the dialogue, shape the policy processes, shape the outcomes of those policies, shape the implementation of those policies. Now, there's other people who want to do it from the outside. People who are maybe organizing at the grassroots level are shaping it from the outside. Lobby and interest groups, they both play the inside game and they also play the outside game by organizing interest grassroots organizations, community organizing, knocking on doors, phone banking voters, getting people to turn out in elections or in public comments and public hearings. And so there's pros and cons to both methods. And so for this workshop, we'll be exploring holding government accountable, but from the inside. Now, what's the building? Well, the simple answer is the California State Capitol in Sacramento, which is about, that's good 8-9 hours here driving. Quick flight, about an hour and a half. San Diego's as far away as you can get from Sacramento. Even if you lived up in north in like the Siskiyous, which is Shasta County, all the way up to the top, you're still farther away because you would have to drive through major metropolitan areas to get to Sacramento. So yeah, it's right there in the middle of the state, believe it or not. So why does the building matter, right? Well, the California State Capitol is where laws of the most populous state in the union are made, right? California is home to almost or about 40 million people, very diverse, both racially, ethnically, demographically, geographically. We have mountains that have snow, and then you drive less than an hour and you're at the beach. We have several military bases. We have a robust private sector, particularly in tech and biotech. We have massive urban centers like the Bay Area and Los Angeles. We have very rich agricultural regions of the state, like the Imperial Valley to our east, the San Joaquin Valley to the north, and the Sacramento Valley past that. We kind of have it all here in California, which is a wonderful thing, both with its opportunities and its, I would say, just like beauty, but at the same time, the challenges and the struggles that happen here as well. So working in the building for a senator or assemblyman is considered prestigious, right? Partly because it's difficult to secure a position with an elected official. So for example, there's only 120 state assembly members and state senators with about 10 staff each. So there's about 1,200 people who work in the building at any given time. This doesn't include the lobbyists or the interest group representatives or citizens and residents who are visiting, engaging their elected officials. And there are other staff as well, like committee staff, leadership staff, and administrative staff. So we can add probably another 200, maybe 300 folks. So less than 2,000 people, both the electeds and their staffs, are hearing from 40 million people, their questions, their comments, their concerns, their suggestions, their complaints, everything. And they're having to serve as this like prism of collecting all that information and then digesting it and turning it into proposals for laws like bills, going through the process, and then getting things eventually from an idea to the governor's signature so that becomes the law of the state. So the building matters, right? It shapes the lives of each of us. Now, what are some Sacramento area job websites that we can check out? So there's three I want to pull out. The first one's the Capitol Morning Report. I'll go ahead and open this link. I'll let this verify for a moment. So the Capitol Morning Report has a staple of job postings. I'll go ahead and post a link in the chat for those of you who are attending live if you want to check out. And this is like the classified sections. So any major political organization or elected official will post jobs here. So let's just take a look at a couple. The County Health Executives Association of California is looking for a deputy director of policy. And they would assist the executive director in legislative budget and administrative advocacy efforts on behalf of CHEAC and the California Local Health Departments, competitive salary and benefits. Okay. 50+1 Strategies. This is a lobbying firm. And they're looking for a data and analytics associate who conducts analyses, synthesize, visualize findings, and communicate recommendations. Starting salary is $50,000. The Modesto City School District is looking for a chief communications officer, somebody who would plan, organize, implement, and evaluate the school's annual communications plans, support district initiatives. They're willing to pay somebody $151,000 to $170,000. That's a good chunk of change. The Commission on Teacher Credentialing is looking for a director of professional practices. So under the direction of the chief deputy director, manage and supervise staff, including investigations units, and the salary on a monthly scale is $8,500 to $9,700. So if you're looking for jobs in Sacramento, this is a place to check out, what's going on. And even here, we're seeing the opposite of the governor is looking for a deputy press secretary to serve as the primary point of contact. Salary is $5,000 to $5,400 a month. So it looks like a lot's going on here. Plenty of jobs. Actually, I actually never seen this many jobs before posted. Wow. Plenty of work in Sacramento there. So this is one job posting site. Let's go check out the next one. The California State Senate. The California State Senate is the upper chamber of the California State Legislature. It has 40 members that represent one of 40 districts in the state. For those of us living here in East County, San Diego, our representative is Senator Jones. And if you live in other parts of San Diego, you probably have another senator who represents you. So here's their job postings. And I'll go ahead and post this link in the chat as well, so you guys can check it out. And here's all the different offices who are looking for folks to hire. So a ton of positions. And again, this is actually a lot. I haven't seen this much of a listing in quite a while. I'll go ahead and pull up this one for Senator Allen. I bring him up because he's a friend of mine, Ben Allen. He represents the Santa Monica, Malibu region of the Los Angeles County area. And I'll zoom in here about what he's looking for. Now, what's helpful about looking at these jobs, even if you're not planning on applying for them, is just knowing kind of what the expectations are of folks who are working in the building. So here they're looking for somebody who can do the basic functions of, under the direction of the senator and the chief of staff, responsibility for several legislative proposals, advising the senator on pending bills, both in committees and on the floor, working with other people, and also assist with constituent inquiries. Here's the particular duties and then the knowledge that you're having. And I want to kind of point this out because this is helpful. knowledge of the processes and the structures of legislative and executive branches of the California government. Like that's the kind of stuff you learn here. You learn upper division courses if you're a poli-sci major. Candidates must possess outstanding policy research analysis and communication skills. So for those of you who are in the 8-week course in American government, you guys already started your public policy project. For those of you in the semester length course, you'll get to that starting in week 9. And what you're going to find is like, oh, wow, like I'm starting to be introduced to this kind of stuff. Yes, that's on purpose because I actually worked in the building for the lieutenant governor fresh out of university. So a lot of stuff going on here, salary, what they're looking for in this case, a bachelor's degree with 2 years of experience and benefits and everything else. Starting salary is pretty standard, around $4,000 a month, and an opportunity. The last site is the California State Assembly. And this is the lower chamber of the state legislature, has 80 members, assembly members who are elected to one of 80 districts. For our region of the state, I have to recall who our representative is, assemblyman. Let's see. So El Cajon, assemblyman, or member, I should say. It's Randy Volpel, this fellow here. So he represents our part of the county in the state's capital. So here's places where they're looking for work. Field representatives, legislative directors, these are all different levels and positions. So just something to keep in mind, right? Just taking a look at it, what are they expecting? So there's places you can find jobs this for the Sacramento area and in the building. Now, in addition to that, the question is, who can you work for in Sacramento? You can work for local governments, the state government at the executive level, the Senate level, the assembly level. You can work for interest groups. You can work for lobbying organizations. You can work for law firms. You can work for community organizations. There's a lot of activity happening in Sacramento because, as we know, this is the place where policies and laws and regulations are set, right, for everyone in the state. So there's a lot of activity going on. Now, what are some of these specific examples of organizations you can work with? So for example, the local government here is the Southern California, an example would be Southern California Public Power Authority. You might be saying, what's that? Well, let's take a look. So I'm going to go ahead and have this read to us.
Who we are. Southern California Public Power Authority, SCPPA, is a joint powers authority created in 1980 for the purpose of providing joint planning, financing, construction, and operation of transmission and generation projects. Comprised of 11 municipal utilities and 1 irrigation district, SCPPA's members serve more than 5 million Californians, 2 million customers, across a service area of 7,000 square miles. SCPPA members supply 16% of California's power.
So that's one example of a local government. It's very large one in the region, but nonetheless there. Other examples include the Board of Psychology. You can work in an office of a senator, office of an assembly member, the California Nurses Association, or Pascal Roth in Public Affairs. Let me go ahead and click on their site. The reason I shared them is because I used to work with Pascal and Roth. Let me go ahead and open up their pages here. So when I worked for the Lieutenant Governor of California, then John Garamendi, Mike Roth was the communications director, and Nikki Pascal was one of the policy analysts. And they had worked for other elected officials before, and then they decided to leave. And I was like, hey, where are you guys going? They're like, oh, we're starting our own firm. I was like, that's cool. We talked about it, and kind of the both the happiness of kind of starting your own thing, but also like the fear because, they had always worked within the government as opposed to outside or in the middle world. But they have their own organization. They've been at it now for almost 15 years. So, we have folks who kind of do this type of work. So these are just examples of different specific examples of what you can do in Sacramento. Now, this last part are specific job examples. And I pulled these up. These are a little dated because I pulled them probably a year ago. So like, for example, at the time, the Southern California Public Power Authority, which we just learned about, they were looking for a director of government relations. And this person would do things like manage and develop and advance legislation and regulatory policy priorities for the organization. Energy environmental policy expertise required. Salary range is $160,000 to $217,000. I'm like, this is like one of those top level positions that takes you about at least 5 years. And that's if you're like super brilliant, smart, and you know and navigate spaces. Probably closer to 10 years plus experience is needed. Another example was the State Board of Psychology. They're looking for a legislative and regulatory analyst who work in their particular unit, earning $5,000 to $6,000. You might say Board of Psychology. It's like, yeah, there's boards in California and commissions that oversee basically every sector of the economy. So psychology, Board of Psychology, Board of Dentistry, Board of Nursing, the Department of Insurance. Like, if you're in a profession that requires some kind of certification or licensing or recognition by the state, which many do, then there's probably a board or commission that oversees it. And then the last example was the California Nurses Association looking for somebody to be a legislative advocate. So all in all, this hopefully gives you an introduction to the building, right? And the idea that it's basically the political power center of the state. And because our state is so large, there's a lot of interest groups, individuals, elected, appointed, and just regular folks like you and me who are interested in what's going on, wanting to pay attention and wanting to contribute to this process of public policy making in our state. And with the eye that it's not just about like, oh, I want to contribute, but part of us feel very strongly that we have to hold it accountable. And the way we do that is by staying involved, staying engaged, and essentially have our voices heard either through ourselves or through these organizations that seek to represent us in the building. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and happy to have a discussion for a few minutes here with those of you who are attending. With that, thanks for listening in, and have a great night.